Perfect. So today's chapter is Bhakti Yoga, Devotional Service, chapter 12. So this ends the Bhakti Yoga section. Okay. So let us pray a obeisance to Sri Radha Govinda. अज्ञानतिमिराण्डस्य नानाकशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरो वैष्णवश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजतं सहगण रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवम् साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगना ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण। So we will come to chapter 12. Before that, just do a little recap what we did yesterday. So yesterday was the chapter 11, where Krishna shows his universal form. This gives the thing. So why does he show? Krishna, Arjuna requests Krishna to show his universal form because he has been hearing about all his energies and about his pervading opulences and all that, and the source of everything. And so he finally asked him to show his universal form. And we saw how Krishna describes it. Then we saw his experiences in the vision and the universal form, and he's so wonderful and he's so astonished. And he was thinking, I've been treating him as my friend and being so familiar with him and things. So really, then he gives a nice prayers, and then Krishna also, then this gives the eligibility criteria, to see these forms, because Krishna says that no one else has seen this form except you. And now when it was shown to him, that's the time when other devatas and the other from other planets are also seeing it. Even Sanjaya saw this. Okay. So only when people who have pure devotion can see the Krishna in this form. Otherwise, no. And this form is not a permanent form, but it is the form because it shows his pervading energy through this cosmic manifestation. So when this cosmic manifestation is annihilated, this form is not there. It just shows the split of matter. So that is original form is his two-handed form, Shyama Sundara form, or then four-handed, the Narayana. So, and Arjuna also sees those two. And then finally, Krishna concludes saying only pure bhakti is needed to see Krishna, Ananya Bhakti. Okay, that's what we saw yesterday. Devotional service is the qualification. Now comes the question by Arjuna. What is the Rupa? See, this is personal or impersonal. So Rupam only we saw, no? It was request, then he saw the universal form, and then he prayers. So what does Arjuna say? Arjuna uvacha evam satata yukta ye bhakta swam pariyupasate ye chapi aksharam abhyaktam te samke yoga vittamaha. Arjuna inquired, which is considered to be more perfect? Those who are properly engaged in a devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested. So now the question comes, in which form you have to come? So why does he ask? This is that the personal form or to the Brahman effulgence, how to get attached. So in actually there are two kinds of transcendentalist, spiritualist people. One is the personalities, they are the Vaishnavas, no, who are attached to the form, no, Hacha Vigraha. And the impersonalists, I think they will only look at the Brahman effulgence. We saw now the three realizations. In the first step, when we start with, we will first get to the understanding of the Brahman realization, that is its effulgence. There is sunlight of the sun. No? Then when you go further, advance it, then you realize the Paramatma who is sitting in all living entities inside us. That is when we look at the sun and see it's a disk. And then when we go further, understand into deeper, then we realize it's the Bhagwan. Bhagwan feature is the personal form. So why is Krishna, Arjuna is asking now? Because he is very much attached to the Krishna's form, So he wants it to be clarified. So this is what he wants us to be clarified. And so that's whether you have to, this which is better. That is, which is more perfect. So this was the query. And on a throughout Bhagavad Gita, you see, it is not one-sided dialogue. You keep, Arjuna keeps asking him clarifications now and then. Whenever he gets into confusion or he wants more clarification, he'll ask him to explain more and things. So now he's asking which form is best. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Vesha Manoyama Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Paryupetas Tema Yuktatama Mataha. The blessed Lord said, he whose mind is fixed on my personal form, always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith, is considered by me to be most perfect. So immediately he gives the right answer, says the personal form. And this is not the first time. See, from the thing, throughout the chapters, when we see, in second chapter, what did he say? Living entity is not material bound, but it's a spiritual spark. Okay. And then in 7th chapter, he said, the living entity is jivas are the part and parcel of the whole. And he recommended that we should transfer our attention, focus it wholly to the whole, because he's the one who has created the controller of the material world and the spiritual world and things. So though we have come from his loka, we should focus on him. And then in 8th chapter, he says, whoever thinks of me, of Krishna at the time of death, is at once transferred to the spiritual sky. He gives his without doubt. Don't doubt me. In chapter 8, he clearly says. So, and also in 6th chapter, he says, of all yogis who thinks of Krishna within himself is considered to be most perfect. So throughout, Krishna is saying personal devotion to Krishna is recommended as the highest form of spiritual realization. Still, so this is what he says. Those whose mind is fixed on my personal form, always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith, is considered by me to be most. So he is not, there is no ambiguity in Krishna. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, he is telling the same message we are getting. So this is the affirmative. There's no thing. Then Prabhupada also in the purport, you see, he talks about Archa Vigraha. Why his Archa Vigraha is required? Many people comment, oh, these people do the idol worship and all that. Actually, it is not idol worship. So he gives a very good example of a mailbox. See, we have a mailbox, the governments have put in a lot of mailboxes. Before now email is there, but earlier we had the mailboxes, where we go and post our letters. So we put it in the post box and the postman will collect it and he will distribute it to the places we have asked it to be distributed. And these boxes are certified by the government. So only to that box. We can't put it into any other box. A child might be given a toy box and all that, but there's no letters code. So Such boxes, only when it is certified, only those boxes will the letters get delivered. Similarly, the Lord which have been the Archa Vigraha, there were deities which are installed in the temples. So they are not, they are being, devotees invite Krishna, the Lord, to be in the deity form. And they have been established by the bona fide master. So when they go to the deity form, the Krishna, they, for them, Krishna himself is the Archa Vigraha form. Okay. So that's how they enjoy. First, to start with, for the neophytes, no, they had to have something in front of them, no, to begin their worship. Okay, for the beginning stage. So that is why they need. Even the pujaris also, no, who do the worshipping in the temples, they have a lot of vidis, lot of principles also they follow. Okay, they have a lot of they collect paraphernalia to bathe the deities, then they put the incense they have, then they invite them, they welcome, they put flowers, and they're almost like they are very much in ecstasy in doing that. So we think that we are living and the deity is there. It's not, it's just a stone and all that. But actually Krishna says, we are dead, the deity is living. So darshan means deity is going to look at you, not the other way. So this is how devotional form. See, we should, there be anything, no, if you want to love something, like if you have a dog and all that, that you want to love the dog, that means you are the subject and the dog is the object. And when it reciprocates, you to be nice, no? When it reciprocates, so he'll be happy, and the dog is happy, and you're happy. So like that. So we need to have some form, for worshipping with love. But what happens? And he's very emphatic in this. He says, my personal form. Okay, Maya Veshi. Now, but then he says, but those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, fixed, and immovable. That is to the Brahma Jyoti, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone. Such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve. So what do? The impersonalities, they control the senses, and they do a lot of yoga and thing, and they start trying to focus their mind and everything on the impersonal form. Okay, onto that. They will finally achieve. It's not that they won't achieve the goal, but they will, but it will take a long time. It's not that easy, and it requires a lot of endeavor. Okay, this is what is required. And so for those minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme. So advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. So klesha adhiktatras tesham avyaktashagas chetasam. Avyakta hi gati dukkham deha vade avapti. That means it's always dukkham. It's not that straightforward. It's very difficult. That is what he says. And because you have to control your senses and everything. But alternately, what we are saying, if you be in Krishna consciousness and you worship the form, that is much more easier and it's much more practical. But this is, it requires a lot of vairagya, and it requires the controlling senses and the thing. It's a long process. Okay, and it's difficult. So from the beginning, you see the answers which Krishna gives is very emphatic. First itself, he gives the answer straight away. And then he tells why the other thing is difficult, why other thing is not practical. Then he gives the reasons. First of all, so that people should not look for the answer. Many people will go round and round and we have to search where the answer is. It's not like that in this Bhagavad Gita. So, and this process depends, the impersonal process depends on our own endeavor, how the effort we have to put in. So, eto sarvani karmani maihi sanyasa mattaraha anyanyeva yogena mam dhyayanta upasate. Tesham aham samudartha mrityu samsara sagarat bhavami na chirat pata maya avishita chetasa. So What is this Mrityu Samsara Sagara? This is the life. It's like a ocean of miseries, no? This birth and death. So he says, ocean of birth and death. He comes, he's the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So for one who worships me, giving up all his activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, always meditating upon me, who has fixed his mind upon me, O son of Partha, for him I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. So now there comes the question. We finished the answering the question of form. Okay. And then now he's talking about the pure devotees, how the activities. And we also saw this description also in the last chapter, isn't it? About the pure devotees, how they do. Because they do that, he is the swift deliverer. That means he comes and delivers them from this ocean of birth and death. So he says, you do the worship of the form. Now he wants to tell us how living in this body we can, you don't have to get to that reach, even in being in this material world itself, how we can be on the spiritual platform. This is how he says. So we get to know this. Ananya Bhakti. This is known as Ananya Bhakti, pure Bhakti. So once you're in that platform, what happens? The Lord will take charge of taking you back. So we saw in the last Chatu Slokas also, that once we are in all the time thinking of him, engaging in his service, then he gives us the understanding to go back to him. And also he is there from within us, within the heart of the thing. He will take charge and give us the knowledge and removes the ignorance. So here he's saying he is a swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. He takes charge of us, of the pure devotees. So Maya eva mana adyatsva, Mayi buddhim niveshaya, nivasheshi Maya eva, atta hurtvam na samshaya. Na samshaya means don't doubt. What is telling not to doubt? Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engage all your intelligence in me. Then you will live in me always without a doubt. So this is the Anyanya Bhakti. That is the topmost. Okay. So, and now we have to see progressively, Krishna tells us, how we have to do the path of devotion is giving now. Okay. First, he explained everything about the devotion, about where he is and what is his abode is and all that. Now he's talking about path of devotion. So you have to fix your mind on the thing. So Supreme Personality Godhead, engage all your intelligence in me, then you will live in me always without a doubt. This is known as Anyanya Bhakti. But to reach this path of highest perfection is not so easy. It is very rare when such Mahatmas are. Okay. Now what is he going to tell us? So Bhakti is safest and surest path. So you don't have to do the Brahma Jyoti influence. Then Ata Chittam Samaduttam Na Saknoshi Mayi Stiram Abhyasa Yogena Tato Mam Ichaptum Dhananjaya. Now comes the thing. My dear Jina, O winner of hell, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, you will develop a desire to attain to. See here, what is so merciful, no, Krishna? He knows very well that it is so difficult and only rare people reach the highest level of devotion. So he says, I know it is difficult, and he knows the nature of people, how they are entangled in this material world, all the jivas. Okay, so he's telling Abhyasa Yoga. So, okay, you can't do this Anyanya Bhakti, but at least you can follow some regulated principles. We have given, that is devotional service. We have said, follow the getting up early, attend the Mangala case, chant 16 rounds of beads, offer food for Krishna, sing for Krishna, and all that. The acharyas have given some regulative principles and what to avoid. That means you should not, you should be truthful, not do gambling, intoxication, and so many restrictions are there. And regulations also are there, isn't it? Acharyas have given that. He said, okay, you do that, you follow that, fix up your myth or deviation, then you can't do. So do the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga. So in this way, what happens? Now he is giving us how to practice the sadhana bhakti. This is known as sadhana bhakti. And I can say, like, we can take an example of a car. If you have purchased a car, you can't straight away take it to the roads, the highway. You have to practice. You have to learn how to drive the car. So then, if you want to drive the car, you have to follow certain rules, the traffic rules and everything, as well as you have to study the car, get acquainted with the car and how all the adjustments if you have with the gas and everything, the brakes and all that, and how to put the petrol, and so many things are there which you have to learn about the car. And also you have to practice. Once you start first you get acquainted, then you start learning, then you start learning to drive. And drive with one day is not enough, isn't it? You have to keep on driving, then only you can master the driving the car. Same way with the practicing prasadana bhakti also. If you practice continuously with sincerely, and then then you can slowly develop a desire to attain Krishna. So you can be on the path of spiritual path. And we have to only a Krishna through associate with the spiritual master. He can give us the Krishna. So you can't just do mentally concoct some way of worship. Just go by a regulated principles. So this is known as sadhana bhakti. Now next, what does he say? So practice of something which is inherent in us. So this Krishna consciousness is not something different. It is there with us. It only needs to be invoked. Okay, that is our nature. Now comes the next. What does he say? Abhyasa api asamatto si mat karma paramo bhava mat artham api karmani kurvan siddhim avapsasi. So what does he say? If we cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, okay, you can't do that also. Then at least try to work for me. That is, do some temple work, some thing to work, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. So what he says, you do some work for me if you cannot practice regulations of Bhakti Yoga. So how to sit and chant on beats and all you can't do. If you can't offer food or talk about him, at least if you had some, you can offer food for him, no? That also you can do, prasadam and all that, or you can work in the temple or any work, or if nothing, at least suppose now we all are benefited from this course, say, then you can at least share it with your friends. Whether they come to the course or not doesn't matter. At least the least you could do is you can share your experience with the others. So this is what he says. You at least work for me, because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. Even from here, we see a lot of volunteers who are in this course with me, who come and at least do the chant, reciting the slokas. Someone had to come to do the translation, read the translation part. Another person comes to just share the PDF or the recite this thing, kirtan and all that. So they just few minutes of their time, they come and share to do something for Krishna, for the course to go on. So some seva, some work for me. If you cannot do the regulations and all that, at least do some work for me. So he says, this is known as Nishkama Karma Yoga. That is, you do things without expecting anything return. So this is another option. Option 2 is work for Krishna. Okay. Then, okay, if you can't do that also. Yad karosi, yad nashi, yad josi, yad dadasi, yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva mat arpanam. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. This was said in the last chapter. all that you do, everything. So you see, he's adjusting to everybody. He's not saying spirituality means this. That is, you have to do Anyanya Bhakti. It doesn't say that. It doesn't lay down with a hard thing for thing. So each one according to their nature, according to their willingness, whatever they can do the worship. We will take up the devotional service to their capacity, and they can start it. And so he is giving all, if you can't do this, at least you do this. If you can't do that, at least do this. So now he is talking about this Nishkama Karma Yoga. So options 2, that is work for Krishna, which was explained in last chapter also. Yet karoshi, yet nashashi. Okay. So there are a lot of sevas are there, no? People in the temple, they donate and all that for prasadam, for Dhupa Seva, or become a membership. There's so many ways. People being outside in the temple, they do seva to the deities, to this cause, to Krishna. So now comes Atyadi api asaktoshi kartum mad yogam ashritaha sarva karma palatyagam tata kuru yatatma. So if however you are unable to work in this consciousness, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. So now what he says, if you can't, at least you do some, give up some results of your work. It could be in the form of time, or it could be some assets or intelligence or some activity, something you give. That means you will be in the giving. No, you're giving up, not like trying to be selfish and try to think everything is for me and all that. Start giving some charity. If you can't do charity for the Krishna or for the Krishna's cause, you can do charity for the other ways. You can build up school or the hospitals or things, so that you will be in the consciousness of giving. Okay. So you can make a beginning stage. Like a lot of rich people are doing philanthropic work and all that they do. So if you can't do that, at least do some charity. So he says, do the Sakama Karma Yoga. So we saw Sadhana Bhakti, then Anyanya Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Nishkama Karma Yoga, and this is Sakama Karma Yoga. Okay, you can do some giving. So now give results to a good cause. This is an option. You give results to a good cause. Here is Nanda Maharaj, he is giving a lot of charity when Krishna was born. So that's what. Now comes another thing. Shreho ye gnanam abhyase, dhanat dhyanam vishishyate, dhyanat karma pala tyagas, tyagas chanti anantara. So now what is the other option? If you cannot take to this practice, then at least engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. But better than knowledge, our is meditation. And better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action. For by such renunciation, one can attain peace of mind. So now he is giving alternatives. So if someone cannot do this, then what? They can do dhyana, then take to dhyana. That is, jnana is cultivation of knowledge, or dhyana to meditation, or you can do the renunciation. So we are not done. So that at least you get the peace of mind. Then see, these are the things, but step by step. You'll be progressing towards the on your spiritual path. So he's telling us different steps. So he's not telling that all have to do only Anyanya Bhakti. Of course, that is only those people are very dear to him. But you can, depending upon the nature and depending upon their facility, about their capacity, they can make a beginning. They can make a beginning, and it will never go waste, because he has told that any progress you made in the spiritual path is always carried over in your next birth. It is never a waste. Even if you have done that Ashtanga Yoga, then he said, even if you have progressed a bit, you will always be born in a rich family or aristocratic family, or in a family of the pious people and all that. So there is always a benefit. There's no loss in this spiritual path. And he gives a lot of, why should he say all this? Why should he tell Arjuna all this, very explicitly, very in detail? I know people cannot do this. If they cannot do that, do this. If you cannot do that, he's giving us a lot of options. That means he knows it is a difficult thing to be a pure devotee. But you can always cultivate the qualities by being in Krishna consciousness. That is what the message is, right? So one who is not envious, now he describes his pure qualities. Who is not envious, but who is kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, who is free from false ego, okay, and equal both in happiness and distress, and and who always satisfied and engaged in devotional service with determination, and whose mind and intelligence are in agreement with me. Sorry, he is very dear to me. He says who is not envious. We don't know what envy is, but he's a kind friend to all living entities. That is not being sorry, not being envious is very difficult. It's not that easy to be, okay? And also to be free from false ego, no? Thinking I'm the great, I'm proprietor of this. No, all this takes, it's a lot of practice. It's not that easy, but you can cultivate these qualities. That's all he's pointing out. No, it takes time for us because there are a lot of misgivings in our heart. I said misgivings are like anger, envy, illusion, lust, ego, greed, all are there in with us. And we have a lot of things from our previous birth also. So we need to think. And if you say, no, you keep tolerating distress and all that, it will go away. No, it's not that easy. But when it comes to happiness and you say you tolerate it, will go away, will we say that we want to be happy all the time? And people who are always satisfied with whatever they get. Even if they get distressed, they say, at least this is so, God is so merciful. He is only giving me this much. Otherwise, I would have had much more distress in my life. And if it's happiness, he says, I don't know why I have been happy. I might not be deserving this, but God is merciful. So their pure devotees are with having such qualities. So they are very dear to me. That's what Krishna says. So he gives the qualities of a devotee. Why he is telling this is we need to cultivate. People who are in the Krishna consciousness can slowly cultivate these qualities. He for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anxiety, who is steady in happiness and distress, is very dear to me. So what we say, see here, this is a picture is showing, no, it's a Chitraketu. He's a Gandharva. And what happens the one day when Lord Shiva will be preaching Bhagavatam to all the sages, and Devi Parvati was on his lap. So this Chitraketu, when he was going there, he sees this scene and he smiles to himself, because he laughs because he's seeing Shiva is telling Bhagavatam and is having Devi on the lap. So, but Shiva is not perturbed. He just smiles. He understands what's happening. But Devi Parvati is very upset because he has laughed. So she gives him a curse, saying, you become a demon. So then Chitraketu is only asked him, and that's a nice pastime. He is not upset at all. He only asks Parvati Devi to, even if I'm in the demon form, at least give me the benediction that will always remember Krishna. Okay? And there's a nice pastime. So Lord Shiva is pure transcendental. He is never distressed. Whereas Parvati took offense and cursed him to be an asura. Okay, there's a nice pastime there in Srimad Bhagavatam. So he says, for whom he is not put into difficulty, he is very dear to me. So how we deal with others in the duality, we are beyond the duality of happiness and distress. And this is the Goswami, who was a pure devotee and the follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He is they were a very rich, very, very rich, this Dhanata Goswami was an exalted devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, they were very rich and they were working under the Muslim, they were ministers in the Muslim rulers, okay? And they were very learned. They knew Persian language, Arabic, Sanskrit, and very, very learned. And they were like an administrative position, and they were very wealthy also with the Muslims. But once they came to know, once they met Chaitanya Prabhu and they heard about him and they think and they wanted to they became his followers. So when they became his followers, what they did, they gave up they had so much of wealth, with them. So it's like, no, they said it was like a boat full of gold coins, like, they had that much. So what they did is the 50% of it, they gave it up as charity to all the Vaishnavas and the Brahmins and everything. And 25% they kept for their families and their relatives and all that, they gave it. And 25% less, they kept it for any emergencies. Okay, in fact, why they kept Rupa Goswami is this Sanatana Goswami was because both of them were trying to come out of they resigned their post, from the Muslim ruler. Actually, the Muslim ruler was not happy and he imprisons one of them. That is, Sanatana Goswami will be put into prison for trying to resign from his post. Then the wealth which they kept, one part. So they used that to bribe and to release himself from the prison. So for such difficulties, they used it. But what they were doing is, they were in the Vrindavan and every day their job was only to write, because Chaitanya Prabhu said, you talk about right on devotion, how people should do their worship. So there are a lot of books have come out from them, and every day they will be sitting only under one tree today and they'll sit another tree another day. Just spend only their time in that and pure bhakti. They were pure devotees, and all that we talk about, all these qualities are all with them. So this is what they were, false ego and all that. And we have a nice and lot of books have come with us from them, which we have dealing with the Lord and all that. So a devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without grace, free from all pains, and who does not strive for some result is very dear to me. I think this story you must know, about how Krishna favors his friend Sudama, isn't it? These are the qualities of a devotee. And then we see how Bhakt Prahlad, who neither grasps pleasure or grief, who neither laments or desires, who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, is very dear to me. And Bhakt Prahlad was being, his own father was trying to kill him, get him killed, and all this. But he was very fixed in his devotion to the Lord, and nothing happens. And the Lord took care of him in all the adversities. So these are the qualities. So one is equal to friends and enemies, who is equal post in honor and dishonor. I think that is very difficult when somebody is insulting us and all that. Heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contamination, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and engaged in devotional service, is very dear. So now, throughout these 4 or 5 verses, Krishna is describing the qualities of a devotee. And this devotee is none other than Ambarish Maharaj. Okay, he was ruling the kingdom and all that. He was a very exalted devotee, okay, of Krishna. Everything in all his activities as he was ruling the kingdom, he was all the time thinking of Krishna. He was going to the apart from his duties as a king, he used to all his senses was always engaged in devotional service for the Lord. Okay, but Durvasa Muni is here. He couldn't understand how a living entity, human being, can be an exalted devotee. He couldn't understand that. He had done a lot of tapas and meditation, and he had a lot of mystic powers, right? But so one day he comes to test it. That was the time when they had the Ekadashi. And after Ekadashi, the next day is Dwadashi, that time when they break the fast. And the king was doing Nirjala fasting. So it was Ekadashi day in the early morning. Durvasa Muni comes and says, see, I'll take my bath and come, and we'll both break the fast together. And so the king will be saying yes, and he'll be waiting for the Durvasa Muni to come. And there's a certain period when the fasting has to be ended and you have to take it. So it will be nearing, and then, and Durvasa Muni never comes. So the minister says, at least you take a drop of water to break the fast during that period. So he just takes a drop of water because it was almost coming to the end of the duration. So then the Durvasa Muni comes and says, what is this? You are not at all waited for me and you have done such a mistake. Then Ambarish Maharaj says, whatever you say, I accept whatever thing you want to think. Maybe there's a fault in me. I have done this thing. I have insulted you. You get. So that time, demon will be, Durvasa Muni will send a demon to hurt the king. But what happens? That time the Sudashakna Chakra comes. This gets comes to protect the Maharaj. So seeing the Sudarshan Chakra, the Durvasa Muni was surprised. He gets astonished, he gets scared also because, and the demon vanishes and he runs for his life because his Sudarshan Chakra will be following. He runs towards Brahma, Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma says, I cannot do, you have insulted a Vaishnava and Sudarshan Chakra is not in my purview. Then he goes to Lord Shiva. We see you had a lot of mystic powers. See, he could go all over the place. Then he went to Lord Shiva and Lord Shiva said the same thing. Then finally he goes to Lord Vishnu for shelter. Then Vishnu says, I can't do anything. You are Sudarshan Chakra, this your Vaishnavas, he's a pure Vaishnava and only he can do anything. I can't do anything. So finally he comes to us, falls in front of Ambarish Maharaj and says, I'm very sorry. And then Ambarish Maharaj will pray to the Sudarshan Chakra and say, if there's anything good I've done, kindly forgive this Durvasa Muni. So then the Sudarshan Chakra leaves. So that's when the Durvasa Muni understands the power of devotion. How the Lord becomes the pure devotee, then pure devotee binds the Lord. So the Lord will take care of him and nothing can be done. Only pure devotee has to. So this is what the devotional service is. So the people who are doing that is very, very dear to me. That's what Krishna says. So this is the qualities of a devotee. And he who follows this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engages himself with faith, making me the supreme goal, is very, very dear. This is also another Bilvantam Thakur, who is blind, and he'll be Bilvanga Mangala Thakur. So he was in a much prema bhava. Krishna is to come and try to listen him. His songs will be so beautiful and he'll be singing the songs and things. So there's a nice pastime of this Thakur also. Okay. And so with this is what he's telling is pure devotees are very, very dear to me who have made the goal of this. So what was the summary? Personal devotion to Krishna is the supreme, not the impersonalist. The supreme. So we need to do the devotional service to the personal Lord. Okay, personal form of the Lord. Okay, and then what does he say? Anyanya Bhakti. That is, if you can't do the pure devotion Anyanya Bhakti, at least do the Sadhana Bhakti. That is, you follow certain principles and regulations which the Acharya says and practice your sadhana. That others, if you can't do all that regulations, at least do Nishkama Bhakti. That is, do work for me and offer all the fruits and everything, activities for me. Okay, you can't do that, do a Sakama Bhakti. That is, do some charity for others and all that. At least you'll be in the practice of giving. Okay, otherwise you can't do that. Cultivate knowledge or do meditation. So he is giving us a lot of steps. So he is giving a lot of options, depending on how our nature, and we may find it difficult to embrace and the devotion. So we can begin a journey according to what is feasible and realistic for us. Okay, then slowly he can develop the qualities of the devotee. He showed us what the attitude to oneself, how they deal with others, and how they react to the events, and dealing with the Lord, and how the Lord is perfect. So this is what we saw. God is the personal form, and what are the options and devotee's disposition, and these are the key spiritual practices which we are talking about, A, B, C, D, E, to be in association of devotees. That will help us to be remembering him, and the regulations and the help us in our sadhana, the books and scriptures, chanting of Hare Nama, deity worship, and engage in work. So Prabhupada says one can cultivate these qualities by being in Krishna consciousness. So surrender to Krishna. So we find the how to go towards the surrendering to Krishna, isn't it? Finally done. And in surrendering to Krishna, we can say it is in Chaitanya Charita Amrita book, no, Madhya Leela. There it says, Anukalyasya Sankalpa, Pratikulyasya Varjanam, Rakshisyati Vishwaso, Gopatri Varanam Tata, Atma Nikshepa Karpan, Sadvida Saranagati. What does he mean? There are 6 divisions of surrender. Accepting things which are favorable to devotional service, reject unfavorable things. You must be convinced that Krishna will give you protection in all respects. Acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master. Then you will have the full self-surrender and humility. It is a simple process. God is great. We are part and parcel of him. So our duty is to serve and surrender unto God. That's all we can say. With this, I'll end today's chapter. Pancha kalpataru abhyascha kripa sindhu abhya eva cha patitam nam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I hope you all are chanting and be happy. So I'll